please allow me to formally start this session with an introduction to our moderators. Dr. Yuzadai bin Muhammad is a general and trauma surgeon consultant of the Trauma Surgery Unit of the Department of Surgery of Sultana Amina Hospital in Johor Bahru, Johor, Malaysia. He is also a supervisor for the Surgery and Emergency Postgraduate Master Program of Malaysia's Ministry of Health, an ATLS instructor, and a member of the National Committee of the Subspecialty Trauma Surgery Fellowship Program. In addition, Dr. Muhammad is the Secretary for the Trauma Surgery Society of Malaysia and the Central Committee of Malaysia's Trauma Surgery Skills Course. He is also a member of the College of Surgeons, Academy of Medicine Malaysia, and also of the International Society of Surgery and the International Association for Trauma and Intensive Care. Joining Dr. Yuzadai as moderator is Dr. Praveen Lingam. Dr. Lingam is a vascular and trauma surgeon in Woodlands Health in Singapore. He recently completed a one-year stint at the National University Hospital and is about to embark on an overseas fellowship at Leeds General Infirmary. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Yuzadai bin Muhammad and Dr. Praveen Lingam.
Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, friends and colleagues logging in from various corners of the world. And welcome to our 9th webinar in our series of interactive virtual encounters. Still, with our fighting journey through this pandemic, we are able to deliver our educational goals through a novel and virtual platform. And for this, we are very thankful to a number of speakers and reactors who have accepted our invitation to participate in this webinar series. And of course, to our education partner, Escolap Academy, and our global audience for supporting this venture. Friends and colleagues, the last 8 webinars were very well received with almost 3,500 viewers. And this September webinar has no less than 1,052 registrants as yet. It is a sequel to our very first webinar with the same title. Code Red means a lot of interpretation in different settings. In internet parlance, it is a computer worm. In the US Marines, it means hazing. In hospitals, it could mean fire. In schools, it is a signal for a full-scale lockdown due to a potential or immediate threat within the campus. And in trauma surgery, it is a condition of heightened alertness or preparedness. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 5th book of the Torah, which is also called the 5th book of the Christian Old Testament and the 5th book of Moses, it states that the blood is the life. What could be more demanding on our watch as trauma surgeons than a full-scale bleeding patient? To deal with vascular injuries is perhaps the most common preoccupation of a well-trained and educated trauma surgeon. Vascular trauma could either interrupt blood flow to an organ or extremity or cause bleeding, which could lead to life-threatening hemorrhage. In 1811, John Frederick Drake, or J.F.D. Jones, an English migrant from the West Indies, author of the experimental treatise on the hemorrhage of wounded arteries, stated it more clearly. The surgeon never suffers greater anxiety than when he is called upon to suppress a violent hemorrhage. And on no occasion is the reputation of his art so much at stake. Today, we are sincerely grateful and very pleased to have eminent speakers who are some of the world's best trauma and vascular surgeons. Professor Ken Beauford will tackle whether general surgeons should be adept with vascular injuries. Professor Tal Horer will deal on the applications of Reboa in vascular trauma. Professor John Crozier will talk on the management of vascular injuries in low-resource facilities. And Professor Karim Brohi will speak on the management of vascular injuries of the extremities. It is indeed an honor to have you, and we deeply appreciate your participation. We are also delighted and thankful to have an illustrious panel of reactors composed of some of the prominent vascular surgeons from the Asian region. They are Professor Eric Herbacio from the Philippines, Professor Willy Muljono from Indonesia, Professor Subodh Kumar from India, and Professor Ji Hoon Kim from South Korea. They will be properly introduced later. Moderating for this webinar will be Dr. Yusaidi Muhammad from Malaysia and Dr. Pravin Lingam from Singapore. Thank you again, Dr. Yusaidi and Dr. Pravin. Our sincerest gratitude also goes to the Scientific Program Director, Dr. Chuming Turk, as well as the Education Committee Chair, Dr. Amit Gupta, and the Vice Chair of the Education Committee, Dr. Raj Menon. They had been the forces behind setting this collaboration and this webinar series. We would also like to thank our secretariat led by Ms. Rinslin Hikban and our industry sponsor by MIDIS, a subsidiary of Unilab Laboratories. And of course, we are deeply indebted to the painstaking team of B. Brown and Escalap Academy, who have provided the platform and assisted in the preparation of this webinar. Thank you, Mr. Sinan Esserman, the new Managing Director of B. Brown Philippines, Ms. Ruby Castro, Ms. Kamya Sinsay, Ms. Shaila Correctivo, and the rest of the team. The Academy of the Asian Collaboration for Trauma has 176 fellows to date, including those who will be conferred the title at the later part of this webinar. Collaboration is the primary reason why the Asian Collaboration for Trauma was formed. Its main objective is to enhance trauma management in the region through multidisciplinary and interprofessional collaboration in education, training, and research. Excellence results from the integration of collaboration and innovation. Let me end by a quote from Sir William Stewart Housted, who lived from 1872 to 1922 and was known for inventing the residency training system in the United States. He stated that the only weapon with which the unconscious patient can immediately retaliate upon the incompetent surgeon is hemorrhage. Once again, a very warm welcome to all of you, and hope you will learn a lot from the presentation. Thank you so much for your participation. Keep yourselves safe and well, and enjoy the active webinar.
Bleeding is the main cause of death in the surgical patient. During this webinar, we have explored various causes of bleeding in the trauma patient. Remember, the treatment of bleeding is to stop the bleeding. So, should general surgeons be taught the basics of vascular surgery and deal with bleeding due to the surgery? Is emergency resuscitative thoracotomy obsolete? What if you are in an environment where many things are not available? They say life before limb. What if a patient is bleeding to death through an injury, or we have a live patient but a dying limb? We hope this webinar is answering these issues, but you can continue to ask these questions through the ACT channel and watch these videos again and again, and those that you have missed. And that is the future of education. All these videos will eventually be loaded on the ACT channel on YouTube. So, subscribe. The focus of the next webinar is again on faculty from the USA. People who do trauma tend to be good leaders. and they are also versatile. They can do many other things. John Fowles from Las Vegas talks about juggling the operating data and teaching. Raul Coimbra from California talks about how to navigate through the various societies. Karen Brazell from Oregon talks about how a mentor and a teacher to younger colleagues should be like. And Andrew Peitzman from Pennsylvania looks at the crystal ball to predict what the future holds for trauma. All very good speakers to learn from. So, good night to some, and good morning and good afternoon to others.